Hey, Ish Monroe, gearing up 2014. You know, you kind of saw this in, what we had was, we called it Project T, which was, the Tatula project from the beginning and some of the things that we're going to fish. And this was one of the first rods I got to fish with, and I fell in love with it. It's a 771 MRB Tatula. And what it is a 7-foot, 7-inch, medium heavy, slower taper that's great for fishing spinnerbaits. Complete graphite rod, teaming it up with the Type R. Once again, my favorite Type R just kind of has the red spool to it. It just has a little bit better look. There's a couple of little minor things that allows it to just be a little bit smoother reel. And the air spool, I really love, the Type R system. 6:3-to-1 gear ratio. The 7-foot rod, 7-foot 7-inch rod, is great for making really long casts with that spinnerbait. This time I teamed it up with Maxima Green, the ultra green monofilament. 15-pound test is definitely the way to go. I used to fish, composite rods, and I felt like they were too slow for spinnerbait fishing when I went to go set the hook. So I've moved to a graphite with a little bit slower taper and have the sensitivity so I can feel the blades turning, and then when I did that, I actually switched back to monofilament for fishing my spinnerbaits. So this is pretty much the way that I went, this year in 2014 is the 7.7 Daiwa Tatula with the Daiwa Tatula Type R 6:3-to-1 gear ratio reel. I'm ready to go fishing, already got the spinnerbait blingster tied on. Let's go cast. The spinnerbait is probably one of the most versatile reaction baits. You can fish it in heavy cover, you can fish it in open water, you can fish it around just about any type of structure. Really excited about this year's classic on Guntersville, notorious place for fishing a spinnerbait. One reason that I switched to the Tatula rod is you can actually see the blades as you can feel them as they're turning, but you can actually see it in the rod, so you know that you're definitely doing the right thing, and the blades are turning right. You can feel it, you can feel all the strikes that you're gonna get. When those blades stop turning, you can snap it. You can tell a lot of different things with the action on this rod. If it's not thumping, a spinnerbait's not thumping, that means those blades aren't turning and there's probably grass on it. Or, when those blades stop turning, you might have a fish on there and you need to set the hook. You can just do a load hook set on him and turn that handle. Another great thing about this rod and the bend in this rod is I'm gonna be able to, once again, fish this reel with no drag. 13 pounds of drag is gonna allow me to tighten this drag all the way down. I'm not gonna get any slip. 15-pound Maximum monofilament ultra green. With the rod being a medium action, it's going to bend a whole lot more into the rod and it's going to have that soft action, but at the same time I'm going to be able to throw that spinnerbait out there and feel it coming back. As you can see, that rod tip, that's the blades turning. People go, isn't that a little bit of a long rod, for fishing a spinnerbait? Well, I like to make long casts. I like to maneuver my spinnerbait around pilings. I like to snap my spinnerbait out of the grass. I like to do a lot of different things with my spinnerbait, and this long rod allows me to do that. So, this year on tour and on the Elite Series, I'm definitely going to be fishing, the Daiwa Tatula 7-to-1 with the Daiwa Tatula Type R reel. T-wing system that we have here pops up, reduced drag friction when you want to make the cast, increases your casting distance. When you don't have your line touching anything and it's peeling off the spool in a freely motion, it just reduces that friction that allows you to make, further casts. So the T-wing system is amazing. One thing that you don't see is where to actually throw it. And the great part about this thing is, like I said, you can throw it just about anywhere. I'm going to be fishing it over the grass at Lake Guntersville. I'm going to be fishing through the reeds at Lake Okeechobee. I'm going to be fishing it around docks and wood and rock at Lake Hartwell. So there's so many different applications with it. You can slow roll a spinnerbait, fish it deep. You can burn a spinnerbait, fish at the top of the water column. Great for smallmouth, great for spots, great for largemouth bass. It's a 12-month out of the year bait. Is, like I said, you want to, in the wintertime, you want to slow roll it. In the springtime, you want to start speeding it up and fishing around the areas where the fish are moving up on beds or where they're on beds. You know, one time in the spring, you know, fish were actually on beds, water got dirty, and I actually threw a spinnerbait to locate those fish on the beds, and they were actually eating the spinnerbait really good. Summertime, you get back there to burning it over the grass first thing in the morning, you know, giving off a lot of flash, and then, you know, as you lead into that summer, you're getting into the shad spawn. A spinnerbait is a great shad spawn bite. When that shad starts flickering on the rocks or around docks or pilings, you know that you better tie a spinnerbait on because the bass are going to be chewing on it. And then, you know, leading into the fall, once again, they're chasing bait in the back of the creeks. The spinnerbait is definitely a way to go. You know, we're going to get into fishing bling spinnerbaits, and, you know, as you can see, lots of different colors in here. You know, I want to tell you right here, powder is probably one of the most consistent colors. You know, white, gold blade, nickel, Colorado. I can fish this bait anywhere in the country and definitely go out there and catch fish in any water condition. So, you know, if you need a go-to spinnerbait, powder, half ounce, that blade combination, you're pretty much ready to go. You get into situations where you need a little bit more flash, you need a little bit more chartreuse in it, you know, then that's when I add the chartreuse one, and, you know, chartreuse and white right there. It's basically lemonade. Basically, you get into your shad patterns, you know, TS minnow. You got to have that when you're fishing in the fall for definitely shad patterns, clear water fisheries that have a lot of shad in it. You know, shad skirt, white, just with double nickel blades, definitely, you know, a good call there. For all you crawdad delta guys, fishing cold-blooded, you know, black, red, just kind of a cold-blooded color, you know, crawdads, and the Texas guys really seem to like that color. I know it. You know, sexy shad, and I know it. It's got everything in it. You know, this is one that I feel super confident with any time of year as well, in just about any water condition. You got white, chartreuse, blue, and a little bit of shad skirt mixed in there. You know, you got a gold and nickel blade, so you got that combination there. The great thing about the bling bling spinnerbaits, hand-tied skirts that flare really good, black nickel, big, super strong hook for catching those big fish, and the blades are practically indestructible. You got flow, you know, fluorescent chartreuse flow, just, you know, good chartreuse spinnerbait. You know, fishing for a smallmouth, they seem to really imitate the yellow perch really well. And last but not least, my river spinnerbait, you know, lemonade with a twist, and that's basically a chartreuse and white skirt with a red kicker blade and a gold Indiana blade. You know, definitely a way to go on the river systems when you have that dirty water. All across the country, I caught them with it. You know, we went to the Sabine River in 2013, and this was my bait of choice that I caught most of my fish on. A spinnerbait imitates so many different things. It imitates bluegill, it imitates crawdads, it imitates crappie, it imitates shad, it imitates hitch, I mean, it imitates bass, it imitates shiners. I mean, the spinnerbait is probably the most versatile bait out there. There's not one place in the country that I can go that I cannot catch a fish on a spinnerbait. So, you know, for folks that are just getting out there and just getting started, one thing is the Daiwa Tatula combo is affordable for everybody. You know, and the bling spinnerbait is definitely the way to go. And you team it up with Maxima monofilament, you'll be able to become a beginner and become an expert really, really quickly. So, you know, teaming up your spinnerbait with the right rod and the right equipment, you're definitely going to go out there and catch more fish.